Hey there. What's your name?
Taylor Parker.
Taylor? Hey, my name's Chad Stansby. I'm a OSBI agent up here, and I heard you brought your baby in. You give birth on the side of the road or something?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
October 9, 2020, a Texas state trooper pulls over a speeding vehicle on a rural highway near the Oklahoma border. A woman jumps out, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a blood-soaked blanket. She's screaming, crying, begging for help. "I just gave birth on the side of the road. My baby's not breathing. Please, you have to save her." The trooper calls for an ambulance, but something doesn't feel right. The woman's clothes are bloody, but she doesn't look like someone who just gave birth. There's no afterbirth, no umbilical cord still attached, and when paramedics examine her at the hospital, they discover something impossible. This woman has no uterus, she couldn't have given birth, so whose baby is this? 30 miles away, in a small house in New Boston, Texas, a mother walks through her daughter's front door and discovers a scene so horrific, so unthinkable, that even veteran homicide detectives would later say it haunted them. Her 21-year-old daughter is dead on the floor, stabbed over 100 times, her skull crushed with a hammer, and her stomach has been cut wide open. The baby is gone. This is the story of Taylor Rene Parker, a woman who faked a pregnancy for 10 months, murdered her friend, and carved an unborn child from her womb. This is Criminal Folder. Kindly subscribe and turn on the notification never to miss our deep dive drops. This is one of the most disturbing cases in Texas criminal history, and this is how it all happened. To understand how Taylor Rene Parker became a killer, we need to go back to where it all started. Taylor was born on March 12, 1993, in Bowie County, Texas, a rural area in the northeast corner of the state, right on the border with Arkansas and Oklahoma. Taylor's childhood wasn't marked by extreme poverty or abuse. Her family was working class but stable. Friends and neighbors described her parents as normal, even loving, but from an early age, Taylor had a complicated relationship with the truth. She lied about small things, test scores, where she'd been, what she'd done. As she got older, the lies got bigger. In high school, she was popular, outgoing, she had friends, boyfriends, and big dreams. She talked about becoming a model, a photographer, a real estate agent, but behind the confident exterior, Taylor was struggling. After high school, she got married young. By her early 20s, she had 2 children, but the marriage didn't last. Court records show that by 2019, Taylor had lost custody of both her kids. There were allegations of instability, financial problems, and a pattern of manipulation that followed her everywhere she went. Friends from that time say Taylor always seemed to be reinventing herself, new job, new story, new identity. She posted constantly on social media, projecting an image of success and happiness that didn't match her reality. And then, she met Wade Griffin. Wade was a mechanic from Texarkana. Hardworking, honest, down to earth. He came from a close-knit family and he wanted kids of his own. Taylor knew this, and she saw an opportunity, so she told him she was pregnant. There was just one massive problem. In the years before meeting Wade, Taylor had undergone a full hysterectomy. Medical records confirm it. Her uterus had been surgically removed. She could not get pregnant, but instead of telling Wade the truth, Taylor made a choice that would set her on a path toward murder. She decided to fake it. By early 2020, Taylor Rene Parker was living a double life. To Wade, to his family, to her friends, she was a glowing mother-to-be, excited, nervous, planning for the future. She posted pregnancy updates on Facebook, she shared ultrasound images, she talked about baby kicks, cravings, and nursery plans. She wore a fake pregnancy belly that got bigger each month. She created a baby registry. She threw herself a gender reveal party in Sims, Texas, complete with pink and blue decorations and a cake. Friends and family showed up with gifts. They hugged her, congratulated her, celebrated with her, and the entire time, Taylor knew there was no baby, but she couldn't stop. She was too deep. Wade's family had already started buying baby clothes, a crib, diapers. His mother was planning to be in the delivery room, and Wade himself. He was over the moon. He talked about being a father. Taylor had given him hope. And now, she was trapped by her own lie. Prosecutors would later reveal the extent of Taylor's deception through her digital footprint. She downloaded fake ultrasound images from the internet and passed them off as her own. She joined online pregnancy groups and copied other women's stories to make her posts sound authentic. She researched pregnancy symptoms so she could fake them convincingly, and then, as spring turned to summer, Taylor started researching something much darker. In May 2020, she began searching online for medical information about childbirth. How to induce labor at home. How to perform a C-section without a doctor. How long can a baby survive without oxygen after birth? She watched YouTube videos about cesarean procedures, she studied diagrams of the female reproductive system, she called multiple pregnancy clinics in Texarkana and Idaho, Oklahoma, pretending to be a patient. She asked detailed questions about labor and delivery, she even called in a bomb threat to a women's health clinic to cancel an appointment that didn't exist, just to maintain the illusion that she was receiving prenatal care. This wasn't desperation, this wasn't panic, this was planning, and by late summer, Taylor had found her target. Reagan Simmons Hancock was everything Taylor Rene Parker pretended to be. She was 21 years old, genuinely pregnant, and genuinely happy. Reagan lived in New Boston, Texas, about 30 miles from where Taylor lived in Sims. She had a 3-year-old daughter named Kinley and was 7.5 months pregnant with her second child, a baby girl she planned to name Braxlyn Sage. Reagan was young, but she was a good mother, she worked hard, she loved her kids, she posted pictures of Kinley on Facebook, along with weekly pregnancy updates showing her growing belly. She was excited, ready, preparing. Reagan had met Taylor back in 2019 when Taylor worked briefly as a freelance photographer. Taylor had taken some family photos for Reagan and her fiancé, Homer Cody Hancock. They weren't close friends, but they stayed connected on Facebook, and Taylor watched. She saw every pregnancy post, every ultrasound picture, every countdown to the due date, and somewhere along the way, Reagan stopped being a casual acquaintance, she became a solution. Prosecutors would later prove that Taylor began following Reagan's pregnancy closely in the summer of 2020. She liked her posts, commented occasionally, stayed just present enough to seem friendly. Reagan had no reason to suspect anything, Taylor was just another mom, another woman excited about babies, but behind the scenes, Taylor was taking notes. She knew Reagan's due date, she knew she lived alone with her daughter during the day while her fiancé worked, she knew the layout of Reagan's house because she'd been there before for the photo shoot. And by early October, as Taylor's fake due date approached, she knew she was running out of time. Wade was expecting a baby, his family was preparing for a birth, Taylor had spent 10 months building this lie, and now she needed to deliver, literally. On October 8, 2020, Taylor told Wade she was having contractions, she said the baby might come soon. The next morning, she woke up early, she packed a bag. Inside were surgical gloves, a scalpel, a hammer, a fake hospital badge, and a diaper bag. She kissed Wade goodbye and told him she'd call him from the hospital, then she got in her car and drove to Reagan's house. It was a quiet Friday morning in New Boston, Texas. Reagan Simmons Hancock had a doctor's appointment scheduled for later that day. It was a routine prenatal checkup, the kind she'd been to dozens of times. Her 3-year-old daughter, Kinley, was still asleep in the back bedroom. Around 8 a.m., there was a knock at the door. Reagan answered, it was Taylor. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no kicked-in doors. Reagan let Taylor inside willingly, she had no reason to be afraid. But within minutes, everything changed. What happened next is based on forensic evidence, autopsy reports, and crime scene reconstruction. Taylor attacked Reagan with a hammer, she struck her repeatedly in the head, the blows were so forceful that Reagan's skull fractured in multiple places. Reagan fought back, the medical examiner would later find deep defensive wounds on her hands, cuts where she tried to grab the blade, bruises where she tried to shield herself. She was conscious, she was aware, she was fighting for her life, but Taylor didn't stop. She stabbed Reagan over 100 times, in the face, the neck, the chest, the arms, the back, the abdomen. Blood spattered across the walls, the floor, the furniture. Forensic pathologist Dr. James Owens would later testify. This was not a quick death. Reagan Simmons Hancock was alive for most of this attack. She felt the pain, she knew what was happening to her. And then, Taylor turned to Reagan's stomach. Using the scalpel, she made a crude incision across Reagan's abdomen. It wasn't surgical. It wasn't clean. Medical examiners described it as a jagged, brutal cut. Taylor sliced through the abdominal wall, cut into the uterus, and pulled out the baby. Braxlyn Sage Hancock was alive when she was taken, her heart was beating, but she was in shock. The trauma, the lack of oxygen, violence of the extraction had left her struggling. Taylor wrapped the baby in a blanket and ran. In the back bedroom, 3-year-old Kinley woke up to her mother's screams. By the time Taylor left the house, Reagan was dead on the living room floor, her stomach was open, her baby was gone, and a toddler was left alone, traumatized, next to her mother's body. By 9:00 a.m., Taylor Rene Parker was back on the road. She was driving her gray Nissan Altima north on U.S. Highway 82, heading toward the Oklahoma border. Her hands were covered in blood, her jeans were soaked, her shoes left red prints on the floor mat. In the passenger seat, wrapped in a blood-soaked blanket, was Braxlyn Sage Hancock. The baby was still breathing, but barely. Taylor didn't go to a hospital in Texas, she didn't call 911, she didn't pull over, instead, she kept driving, fast. She was trying to put as much distance as possible between herself and the crime scene. Just before 9:30 a.m., Texas State Trooper Chad Wynn was running radar on Highway 82 near Dalby when he clocked a vehicle going 19 miles over the speed limit. He turned on his lights and pulled the car over, the driver's side door flew open before he even got out of his patrol car. A woman jumped out, holding a baby, screaming. "I just gave birth, on the side of the road. The baby's not breathing. Please, you have to help." Trooper Wynn approached cautiously, he looked at the woman, then at the baby. Something wasn't right, there was blood, yes, but the woman didn't look like someone who had just given birth minutes earlier. There was no afterbirth, no placenta, no umbilical cord still attached to the baby, and the woman's body didn't show the physical signs of labor, no swelling, no exhaustion, no trauma. Trooper Wynn called for EMS, but he also started asking questions. "Where exactly did you give birth?" "Back there, on the side of the road." "Which mile marker?" "I don't know, I was in labor, I wasn't paying attention." EMS arrived within minutes, they loaded Taylor and the baby into an ambulance and rushed them to McCurtain Memorial Hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma. Taylor kept up the act the entire way, crying, begging the paramedics to save her baby, but when they arrived at the hospital, the truth came crashing down. Nurses examined Taylor and found no signs of recent childbirth, no dilation, no tearing, no bleeding. A doctor performed an ultrasound and discovered something shocking. Taylor had no uterus, she had undergone a hysterectomy, pregnancy was medically impossible, the baby she was holding wasn't hers. Hospital staff immediately called law enforcement, and back in New Boston, Texas, at that exact moment, Reagan's mother was making a discovery that would shatter her world forever. Jessica Brooks was worried, her daughter Reagan had a doctor's appointment that morning, and she wasn't answering her phone. Around 10 a.m., Jessica drove to Reagan's house in New Boston, the front door was unlocked. She walked inside. "Reagan. Baby, are you here?" Jessica walked into the living room and stopped, her daughter was on the floor, blood was everywhere. Reagan's face was unrecognizable, her stomach was cut open, and the baby was gone. Jessica screamed, she called 911. The dispatcher tried to keep her calm, but Jessica couldn't stop sobbing. "My daughter is dead. She's pregnant and someone cut her baby out. Oh my God, oh my God." Police arrived within minutes, the scene was one of the worst they'd ever seen. Reagan's body was still warm, the attack had happened recently, maybe within the last hour or two, blood spatter analysis showed the violence had been concentrated in the living room, there were signs of a struggle, Reagan had fought hard. In the back bedroom, officers found 3-year-old Kinley, awake, confused, terrified, she kept asking for her mommy. Detectives immediately issued an Amber Alert for the missing baby, but within the hour, they received a call from McCurtain Memorial Hospital in Oklahoma. A woman had been brought in claiming she'd given birth on the side of the road, but doctors confirmed she hadn't, and the baby she had with her didn't match her story. Law enforcement connected the dots immediately, the baby in Oklahoma was Reagan's baby, and the woman who had her was the killer. By 10:20 a.m. Taylor Rene Parker was officially in police custody. Braxlyn Sage Hancock died at 11:05 a.m., she never had a chance. Once Taylor Rene Parker was in custody, investigators moved fast. They obtained search warrants for her phone, her car, her home, and her social media accounts. What they found was damning. Taylor's phone was a roadmap of premeditation. In the weeks and months before the murder, she had searched how to induce labor at home, how to perform a C-section, how long can a baby survive without oxygen, buying a fake pregnancy belly, fake ultrasound pictures online. She had watched YouTube videos on cesarean procedures, she had visited medical websites, she had researched which hospitals in Texarkana and Idaho had the least security. Investigators also found dozens of fake ultrasound images saved on her phone, screenshots from Google Images that she had passed off as her own. They interviewed Wade Griffin, who was devastated. He told detectives he had no idea Taylor had faked the pregnancy, he thought he was about to be a father. "I loved her," Wade said in an interview. "I trusted her, and she played me like a fool." Detectives also pulled surveillance footage from gas stations and traffic cameras along Taylor's route on October 9. The footage showed her leaving her home in Sims around 6:30 a.m., driving to New Boston, and then leaving Reagan's neighborhood just after 9 a.m. Her car was seen on camera speeding north toward Oklahoma shortly after. Inside Taylor's car, investigators found blood evidence that matched Reagan's DNA. They also found the scalpel, still stained with blood. Taylor's fingerprints were found on the hammer used to crush Reagan's skull, and perhaps most chilling, investigators found text messages between Taylor and Reagan from the days leading up to the murder. Reagan had been friendly, trusting, excited to talk about babies. She had no idea she was being hunted. Prosecutors called it one of the most premeditated murders in Texas history. This wasn't a crime of passion, this wasn't a mental breakdown, this was a calculated plan to kill a woman and steal her child, and Taylor Rene Parker carried it out without hesitation. On September 12, 2022, nearly 2 years after the murder, Taylor Rene Parker's trial began in the Bowie County Courthouse in New Boston, Texas. The courtroom was packed, national media outlets covered every moment, spectators lined up outside, hoping to get a seat. Taylor faced 2 capital murder charges, murder of a child under 6 years old, and murder committed during a kidnapping. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorneys Kelly Crisp and Lauren Richards. They didn't just want a conviction, they wanted death. From the opening statements, the prosecution made it clear. This was not a crime of impulse, this was murder by design. They presented a detailed timeline showing how Taylor had faked her pregnancy for 10 months, researched how to perform a home cesarean, and targeted Reagan Simmons Hancock specifically because of her due date. The first witness was Jessica Brooks, Reagan's mother. She walked to the stand, visibly shaking. The prosecutor asked her to describe what she saw when she entered Reagan's home. Jessica's voice broke. "I saw my baby girl on the floor, her face. I couldn't even recognize her face, and her stomach it was cut open, and I knew the baby was gone." The courtroom fell silent, several jurors wiped their eyes. Then came the crime scene photos. Even the seasoned court staff looked away as images of Reagan's body were displayed on the screens. Her face had been beaten beyond recognition. Her torso was covered in stab wounds, the crude incision across her abdomen was jagged and brutal. Forensic pathologist Dr. James Owens took the stand and walked the jury through the autopsy. Reagan Simmons Hancock was stabbed 100 times, her skull was fractured in multiple places from blunt force trauma, and based on the blood flow and tissue response, she was alive during most of this attack, including when the incision was made. One juror gasped, another put his hand over his mouth. Dr. Owens continued. The baby, Braxlyn Sage, was alive when she was removed from the womb, but the trauma and lack of oxygen caused irreversible brain damage. She died approximately 2 hours later. The prosecution also called digital forensics expert Detective Aaron Jones, who testified about Taylor's internet search history. He displayed screenshots of her Google searches on a large screen. How to fake pregnancy. C-section procedure step by step. How long does it take to bleed out? The jury stared in disbelief. Next, prosecutors played audio of a jailhouse phone call between Taylor and her mother. In the recording, Taylor never once mentioned Reagan's name, she never expressed remorse, she never asked about Kinley, the 3-year-old who witnessed the aftermath. All she said was, "I messed up real bad, Mom, I don't know what to do." Her mother asked, "What were you thinking?" Taylor replied, "I wasn't, I needed it to be real." The defense team, led by attorney Jeff Harrelson, tried to argue that Taylor suffered from mental illness. They brought in a psychologist who testified that Taylor had borderline personality disorder and a history of dissociation. She wasn't fully in control of her actions, the psychologist claimed. She was living in a delusional state, but the prosecution destroyed that argument. They pointed out that Taylor had researched the crime for months, she had chosen her victim carefully, she had brought weapons, she had fled the scene and tried to cover her tracks. This, prosecutor Kelly Crisp said, is not the behavior of someone who is mentally incapacitated, this is the behavior of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. After 6 days of testimony, the case went to the jury, they deliberated for just over 1 hour. On October 3, 2022, the verdict was read, guilty on both counts of capital murder. Taylor showed no emotion. After the guilty verdict, the trial moved into the sentencing phase. In Texas, capital murder cases allow the jury to choose between life in prison without parole or the death penalty. The prosecution argued that Taylor Rene Parker deserved to die. They called it one of the most heinous crimes in Texas history. They reminded the jury that 2 innocent lives had been taken, one a young mother with everything ahead of her, and one a baby who never even got to take her first breath outside the womb. The defense begged for mercy. They argued that Taylor had no prior criminal record, that she had suffered trauma in her own life, that executing her would not bring Reagan or Braxton back. But then, the victim impact statements began. Jessica Brooks, Reagan's mother, took the stand. Her voice was steady, but her pain was raw. My daughter was 21 years old, she had a 3-year-old little girl who will never understand why her mommy isn't coming home. Reagan was alive when this monster cut her open, she felt every bit of that pain, and for what? For a lie. Jessica turned and looked directly at Taylor. You are evil, you don't deserve to breathe the same air as the rest of us. You took my baby from me, you took my grandbaby from me, and I hope you rot. Cody Hancock, Reagan's fiancé, also spoke. I was supposed to marry her, we were supposed to raise our daughters together, instead, I'm raising one alone and burying 2, his voice cracked. I hope you never know peace. After 2 days of testimony, the jury was given their instructions, they deliberated for just under 3 hours. On November 9, 2022, they returned with their decision, death. Judge John Tidwell read the sentence aloud. Taylor Rene Parker, you have been found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. You are hereby remanded to the custody of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, where you will remain until the state of Texas carries out this sentence. Taylor sat still, no tears, no reaction. As she was led out of the courtroom in shackles, Jessica Brooks whispered, "Good. Taylor Rene Parker is now inmate number 02139215. She is housed at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas, the only prison in the state that holds female death row inmates. She lives in solitary confinement, 23 hours a day, in a cell that measures 6 feet by 10 feet. The cell contains a metal bed, a toilet, a sink, and a small shelf. She is allowed out for 1 hour a day, during which she can shower or exercise alone in a small cage. She has no physical contact with other inmates, meals are delivered through a slot in the door, she can receive visitors, but only through thick plexiglass, no touching, no hugging. She can write letters and make phone calls, but every word is monitored. As of now, Taylor's execution date has not been set. In Texas, death row appeals can take decades. The average time between sentencing and execution is about 11 years, but some inmates wait 20, 30, even 40 years. Some die of natural causes before the state ever gets the chance to execute them, but unless a court overturns her conviction or the governor grants clemency, Taylor Rene Parker will eventually be taken to the Huntsville unit, where Texas carries out executions. She will be strapped to a gurney in the execution chamber, she will be given the opportunity to make a final statement, and then, she will be injected with a 3-drug cocktail. First, a sedative to render her unconscious. Second, a paralytic to stop her breathing. Third, potassium chloride to stop her heart. The entire process takes about 7 minutes, and then, Taylor Rene Parker will be gone. Reagan Simmons Hancock's murder didn't just destroy one family, it shattered an entire community. Jessica Brooks, Reagan's mother, has become an advocate for victims' families. She speaks publicly about the trauma of losing her daughter and granddaughter in such a horrific way. People ask me how I'm doing, Jessica said in an interview. And I tell them the truth, I'm not okay, I'll never be okay. But I wake up every day for Kinley, she's all I have left of Reagan. Kinley, now 7 years old, is being raised by her grandmother. She's in therapy, trying to process what happened. Cody Hancock, Reagan's fiancé, has largely stayed out of the public eye. Friends say he's struggling, trying to rebuild his life while carrying the weight of unimaginable loss. Wade Griffin, Taylor's ex-boyfriend, has also spoken out. I was deceived, he said, I thought I was going to be a father, I thought I was in love, and it was all a lie, I didn't know what she was capable of. If I had known, if I had suspected anything, I would have stopped her. The case also sparked conversations about fetal abduction, a rare but devastating crime. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there have been fewer than 20 cases of fetal abduction in the United States since 1987. Most involve women who are either infertile or have lost a pregnancy and become obsessed with having a baby. In almost every case, the victim is someone the attacker knows personally. Taylor Rene Parker fits that profile perfectly. Experts say cases like this are difficult to prevent because the warning signs, fake pregnancies, obsessive behavior, are often hidden or dismissed until it's too late, but Reagan's family wants people to know, if something feels off, say something. Taylor Rene Parker's case is a reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself, it doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes, it wears a smile, it posts on Facebook, it throws parties and pretends everything is fine, and sometimes, it plans murder in silence. Reagan Simmons Hancock was just 21 years old, she had her whole life ahead of her, she was weeks away from holding her second daughter, she was building a future, and it was all stolen. Braxlyn Sage Hancock never got to take her first steps, say her first word, or feel the sun on her face. She was ripped from her mother's womb and died 2 hours later. Kinley Hancock lost her mother and her sister in one day, she will carry that trauma for the rest of her life, and for what? A lie, a desperate, selfish, monstrous lie. Taylor Rene Parker is now on death row, waiting for the day the state of Texas ends her life. Some people believe she deserves it, others believe no one should be executed, no matter the crime, but one thing is certain. 2 innocent lives were taken, a family was destroyed, a community was scarred, and nothing, not a trial, not a sentence, not an execution, will ever bring them back. If this case moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel anything at all, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, because these stories matter. These aren't just headlines, they're real people, real families, real lives, and they deserve to be remembered. Rest in peace, Reagan Simmons Hancock, rest in peace, Braxlyn Sage Hancock, you deserved so much better.